Discover how to raise your first million in today's session with Ali Parandeh. Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services. Ali Parandeh is a mentor and board advisor. After selling his last IT company in 2018, Ali has dedicated a major part of his time to helping other entrepreneurs achieve their dreams. He's currently a board advisor at several startups and a mentor in various incubators and accelerators. And he has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs with their startup idea, business strategy, and pitching that have led to the successful closing of numerous fundraising rounds. Now, the first question is, share with us, please, your journey into entrepreneurship and what motivated you to help entrepreneurs to raise their first million.
Thank you, Lily, and it's a pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you for having me. I suppose I'd better tell you a little bit about my story before I tell you how I came to helping entrepreneurs. And I sometimes call myself an accidental entrepreneur, because I never planned on being an entrepreneur. I just happened to become one. And I became an entrepreneur simply because I did not have a work permit. So when you do not have a work permit, and when you're not allowed to work legally for other companies, then you set up on your own. So I'm an accidental entrepreneur because I had no other way of earning money, and I had to make it for myself. And I started my entrepreneurship at university. I dabbled in various different projects. I used to buy and sell laptops for students. And I have been an entrepreneur all my life. And when I finished university, I did not have a work permit at that time. I didn't have it in the UK because I was on a student visa and I'm Iranian, and I went back to Iran. And in Iran, I didn't have a work permit because I hadn't done my military service. So I virtually had to shortcut, maneuver, and find a way of getting started in the workspace until I become legal and work. So I set up my first company with another colleague, Iran Biotech Industries. And I was a shareholder, therefore it was more or less legal. And as a shareholder and an active partner, we started producing the taq-DNA polymerase. Most of it, my partner and I dealt in the selling part of it. taq-DNA polymerase is the enzyme that's used in the PCR tests that they did during COVID. Now, one of the most important things in that time, they did not have a license or a patent for it in Iran, and therefore copying and selling it was easy. And we were able to sell that to universities. Had we kept it, we probably would have made a lot more money by now, if you can imagine, with all the PCR tests that people had to do. We didn't. In 2000, I sold part of my shares along with my partner, and we moved out. I moved out of Iran. I came back to Spain, where I currently am. And in 2000, I set up a IT company, PC Doctors and Electron Box. And that company I sold in 2018. And during this time, I also started a software as a service for homeowners association. While the first two companies went really smooth and really well, and we generated good revenue, the software as a service, nothing went as planned. Nothing. Every single thing I planned was met with an obstacle. I had to reinvent the wheels. I had to redo the thinking. And that was, I would say, that was actually the beginning of my entrepreneurship, the learning period of my entrepreneurship. That's where I learned what it's about. That's where I learned the most. And of course, I had earned a fair bit of money. I started spending my money, and I started spending more, and I started spending more. until you come to the point that the team grows and you think, right, you've spent a fair bit of money and now you need to raise money. And there is where my learning came from fundraising. And of course, the first trials and the first rounds, some were successful and many were met with failure. So through that startup, which I had many obstacles and many problems with, I learned what I know today and what I use to help other entrepreneurs and startup founders. That is where my expertise come from. And about 10 years ago, I also got involved with a organization called Toastmasters International. Now, Toastmasters International helps you with public speaking, communication, and leadership. And that's where I improved my public speaking abilities and communication. And therefore, mixing the two things of entrepreneurship and public speaking, what I have been able to do is help entrepreneurs speak the investor's language, tell compelling stories that engage the investor's mind and interest in order to get the fundraising that they need. So that's a little bit of a background about why I'm here now helping entrepreneurs with fundraising.
Thank you. What are some common misconceptions entrepreneurs have about raising capital?
So a lot of the entrepreneurs think a number of things that they get completely wrong when they go out looking for funding. So they think that the investor would be interested by hearing big numbers that, oh, we're going to make millions, hundreds, millions, or billions of euros. And investors don't really get excited about you telling them that they're going to make it. They want to be able to calculate that, and most investors are risk averse. So you need to provide them with very basic numbers and tell them how you're going to get at least the first 10 clients, 100 clients, and the scope of the market in order for them to do the maths themselves. Once they're able to do the math themselves in their head, and you've told them that you're, manufacturing this mouse for €1, but out there it sells for €10, your profit margin is €9 on average. People break these every 2 years, so they need a new mouse, and each person throughout their lifetime will buy 10 or 12 of these. Once you've made it in simple numbers, a person, an investor in that point is able to now think, okay, you're making about a €9 profit on each. One person will buy 3 from us, 5 from some other company, or even if they just buy 1 from us throughout their lifetime, then they're able to start the basic math. And then you give them the numbers that we're going to manufacture in China, sell, initially, or manufacture locally in Europe, and just sell in England to 100,000 because you've got one deal with this place or that place. So basic numbers are much easier to deal with because we can calculate them. And once you're given those, remember that the investor has been there, has done it. So, and they're very often looking to help. So they want to bring their network in, and they think of the places they can sell it to and the higher places they can take you. Therefore, they start extrapolating within their circle of connections, and they're able to see, okay, if you can sell to 100,000, I'll sell to 1 million or sell to 10 million. And those are the basic numbers that allows them to see the potential. And then you can talk about the potential above what he can see or what he's able to achieve. But always got to start with the basic numbers. So big numbers don't mean anything to the investors. The next thing is that a pitch deck, when you're talking to an investor, they're not always interested to know every single detail about the product. 10% knowledge is enough. We don't need to open the bonnet and know everything about it inside. That is a product pitch. You're talking to raise money, it's an investment pitch. So you need to talk about the investment finances. When you need the money, can it be broken up into chunks, smaller pieces, and where will it be used? How will it be used? What will it be used for? And those type of things are what is important. And of course, when will you get the money back? As an investor, this is the most important thing. When will I get it back, and how much will I get back? I would say those are the two things that a lot of people as entrepreneurs miss it, and they think, oh, well, you're going to make loads of money with this. When? How? Answer those questions, and you'll be closer to getting an interest from an investor.
Thank you. What strategies do you have for entrepreneurs who don't yet have a single client? They just have an idea. They have an idea of how the product or the service will happen. They have the entire business plan kind of figured out, but they don't have yet their first client.
Okay. So I was actually with a startup founder last Friday. We had lunch together, and he's a bit more developed in his plan, but I said exactly the same thing to him because he didn't have that one first client. And I said, until you don't get that one first client, no investor is going to come and talk to you. So you have to be able to prove it. And in order to get your first client, at the end of the day, you're solving somebody's problem. So you approach people who have that problem. And by approaching those people who have a problem and telling them, look, I have this product that can help you. Would you be willing to work with me so that I can provide it for you? So you can actually turn your first clients into your collaborators, into your clients, and using them, you can produce and get that first client to help you create your product. That's one very, very easy way. And that is the method that, we discussed with this particular entrepreneur, because he needed more money, and, he had a couple of prototypes, and it was the best way for him to go forward, because he would absolutely ensure that he will have clients and he will have financial support. So I would say, find your clients, set up a simple web page, describing what the problem is, and get those clients to come to you, offering them the solution, and then offering them the opportunity to be part of the journey.
Thank you. There are quite a lot of unknown metrics when entrepreneurs try to get their first million. The reason for that is that they don't know what the investor is actually going to ask for. And sometimes the calculations for what they're going to ask for can be quite complex and really hard to calculate. Like how many people you're going to need when you're going to, depending on how complex the business is, right? Yeah. So what do you suggest entrepreneurs do to make sure that they don't actually have to do those calculations? Because, for example, I saw this story of Stephen Bartlett, and he was saying how he emailed one investor, and that investor just gave him the money, not even knowing what the business was going to be. Now, of course, entrepreneurs are not typically in that position. They're in this position where they have to do a gazillion pieces of paperwork and convince an investor of the value, of potential value of the business, and or ROI and all these different things. So what do you recommend for entrepreneurs to do so they don't have to go through these hurdles? Are there any secret societies of investors that will just give you money a little bit faster without all of this paperwork and so on, or no?
I would say there are no secret societies, and I would say there's no fast track. The fast track is really, well, of course, sometimes, if you've got link into a network, that might be your fast track. But if you don't have that link, which is for most cases, then your best case is, in order to find a good partner, a partner who knows how to create a proper financial plan and explain it to investors. And what you said with, the entrepreneurs don't know. Last year, I helped one startup. They were looking for £1.6 million. And I actually broke down the requirement down to £316,000, because they did not need 1.6. They had no idea about how many programmers they need. They didn't know how many support programmers they need, support staff they need. And they had exaggerated all of the numbers because of their inexperience. And of course, they were requesting the money for 5 years up front. And that money by any investor can be used in many better ways. So first of all, I broke it down into a 18 months plan. I said, we're going to ask for only 18 months, because Beyond that, we really don't know where you're going to go, how far you're going to go, where you're going to be, whether you need to pivot. I reduced the staff number down to 4. Anything that needed purchasing, I threw it out. I took on leasing. So leasing reduces a lot of costs. And, if you need anything, you can pretty much, rather than buy these days, lease and reduce your costs to monthly small installments. So by doing that, I came from 1.6 to 316, and the result was that they were able to complete the fundraising in less than a couple of months with just a couple of business angels.
Thank you. What are the best funding options for entrepreneurs that have startups?
I wouldn't say there's any best funding option. It really depends on each startup. I certainly would say finding one good advisor or finding one good business angel who comes in with cash and smart money. And by smart money, their network, because their network is worth more than the money they put in. They're able to push you through many places that you're not usually unable to get to. They're able to connect you. They're able to bring other people to the table. They know people themselves who have more money than them. So they're able to then connect you to the next level up and present you to their friends and connections. So I would say always find one good business angels who comes in money with the smart money, cash with the smart money. That would certainly be one of the things I would tell them as a best advice.
Thank you. Now, in terms of raising your first million, I think you have a few options. One option is where you hire some sort of consultant that has a big network of investors ready and willing to put down money for the right proposition. And when you do that, you typically need to actually pay them like monthly. And it can be quite a big amount. That's one option. Now, another option is where you hire a consultant on the basis of this consultant is going to get some sort of percentage and also some sort of lump sum as well, or like a monthly sum. There's a third option where consultants get a percentage only out of the sum fundraised, and they will be introducing their network without actually asking for a monthly thing. And how to find the right type of consultant or advisor for every startup, because I think first, most businesses don't have that kind of money. Let's say $5,000, $10,000 every month to invest in an advisor. Of course, they understand the value of an advisor who will be able to introduce their valuable network. But let's say they don't actually have that money, how to get around it, right? So the second thing is like where to find these people that will only take, let's say, a commission from the amount raised, and where to find those people that will actually do the work and not just kind of give up after a few weeks.
Okay, so first of all, I think we've got to break them into a number of series of startups. You've got the seed round, which is the first round, and we'll talk about Europe, not US, because in US you raise much higher rounds than in Europe, and in Europe your first round may be 50,000 to 100,000. And the easiest way of raising that 50 to 100,000 is pretty well known. It's the 3F, fools, friends, and family. You can raise a fair bit of money from friends and family. So start with that and do it yourself, because that's one of the easiest ways usually. The second option is by going to some incubators. Going through some incubators will allow you access to the incubation fund or the acceleration fund, or they have a number of usually connections to venture capitals that after you've gone through that acceleration program, they do dish out tickets of 50 to 100,000 euros. So if you're in that round, then your option one, if you don't want to go through an acceleration program, friends, fools, family. And your option two, go through an acceleration program. If you're in the middle and you've raised your first 50 to 100,000, it's still not a lot of money, and you now need to raise your next 500,000 in order to give it some growth between 250, let's say, to 500,000. This is where you, as the founder, again, come in. You can't really go to necessarily friends and family for that amount. Sometimes you can get some of it. Now you start needing to go to business angels. But I would say do that work yourself. In this round, do that work yourself. It is time consuming. You've got to put in the work and the effort, but it is possible. If you plan it, if you have all your documents ready and get help to prepare your documents properly, and have professional help to prepare those, then it's much better than the fundraising part. So the fundraising part, you can do yourself. If your documents are ready and you reach out to investors and go to a couple of LinkedIn courses, there are plenty of those how to raise, capital. Do a couple of those courses and you can do that. And from there, usually they say the minute you finish raising one round, you need to start preparing raising the next round. So once you finish raising that first 250 or 500, right at that point, hire somebody, start working on raising your next round, because you'll have a window of 12 to 18 months or maximum 2 years where now you have the money, now you have the cash in the bank, put some of it for funding. And because if you wait towards the end, you've run yourself thin, you've used a lot of that money, then you don't have that money, and you can't find those companies or pay those companies who can do it. And there, I would say just go to companies who've had success, who don't charge an arm and a leg, depending on how much you're charging. Don't fall for those who are running after you and saying, oh, we'll get you promoted within magazines and dinner networks and all of that. There's a lot of scam. It's unbelievable how much a scam there is in that area.
Thank you. And what is the benefit of bootstrapping versus trying to raise funding?
So with bootstrapping, you really learn a lot, because there's a lot you can do with just a little bit of money. In the last startup that I am an investor and a co-founder, we actually got the full platform running with 15,000 euros. Whereas in the previous two rounds, both myself and my other co-founder, we had to spend around 100 to 150,000 to get the platform going.
Thank you.
With bootstrapping, virtually, we did the same thing that we did with a lot of money that we had raised and also our own money.
Thank you. How do you approach investors in a way that your project feels important enough for them to actually look at it and take an action on it?
Okay, so the question you asked is interesting, because you really need to investigate your investor first. You need to look them up, you need to see what their interest is, and you need to see if they are suitable for the investment pitch you're pitching them. Because if you go to an investor who is an IT person and who's software investor, and you pitch them about health tech and you pitch them about agriculture products or other things, they're most likely going to reject it or not be interested or not understand it. So know your investor first, do your research and find out what their interests are. And once you've done that, you're more likely to get their interest, because they obviously will have expressed their interest on LinkedIn or various different areas, and you will be able to see whether that matches that interest. Once you find the common ground between yourself and them and their product that you have, then you're most likely to capture their attention.
Thank you. A lot of investors tend to say, oh, follow me on LinkedIn. But then you go there, and then if you don't have like the Sales Navigator, the premium membership, you may not be able to actually connect with them. So I do wonder, what ways are there to get around that, to be able to actually land into the inbox of an investor? The other thing is that even if you do, what's the even likelihood that they will actually look at it? Because I heard that most investors take a minute or two to look at the pitch deck and know whether they're going to look into this deeper. So how do you make sure that not only you land into the inbox of a suitable investor, but you also capture their attention so much that they are going to have a meeting with you?
Okay. So one way of starting is going direct into their inbox. And by going into their inbox, you got to take into consideration that a lot of people are after those investors. So they receive a lot of emails, and they will give you the attention of not even 1 or 2 minutes, possibly 30 seconds. And the first 5 to 10 seconds is seeing whether it matches their interest or not. So if the product is aligned with their investment strategy, if they understand it, and if that first paragraph is aligned with them. If you can, rather than send a huge pitch deck, just capture their attention with a 5 to 10 seconds or 30-second paragraph, you're more likely to get them to say, send me more. If you then send them another pitch deck or a teaser or a pager, then they're likely to look at it. If you go full on with the whole information in one go, it's information overload. And information overload, we don't have time to look at it, and most likely we're just going to skip it rather than converse with you. And I would very much suggest, rather than going cold, possibly interacting with investors on various different platforms, wherever you find them. So they will be in different platforms, some on Instagram, some on LinkedIn, some they will be offline and in networking events. Building a relationship with them and then approaching them is much more fruitful than just sending loads and loads of emails and hoping for the best.
Thank you. What were the most successful elements of the pitches that you were sending to investors when you were helping those companies to raise capital?
Okay, so remembering that investors are risk averse, and that most of the investors, as you just mentioned, don't read and don't have the time to read. It's minimizing the amount of information you're putting on a pitch deck, minimizing the amount of text, and just bringing it to the very basic of what is the problem you're solving, whose problem is it, and then providing some very basic numbers so that the investor can very quickly capture the amount that they might make out of this process, how much profit there is in it, and where the market is going to go. So those things, providing the basic numbers, making it very, very simple for them to go through 2-3 pages, understand the problem, understand your solution, understand the possibility of the market, and then what's in it for me? What's in it for the investor? So how much are you asking for? And be humble. If you start asking for too much, of course, if you approach an investor whose ticket size is 10 to 50,000 and you're going to ask for 100,000, you've already lost that investor. So do your homework, make sure you know what their ticket size is, and approach them with the right ticket size.
Thank you. Did you find that the reason you were so successful in helping startups is because you built a network of investors? And when, let's say, receiving a pitch deck from a company, you knew exactly, oh, maybe Pedro would be interested, or Sandro, or whoever else from your network, and you would go directly to those people and pitch the entrepreneur's business to them. And that was a more effective way of going at the kind of like of succeeding? Or was it something else that you did that you find was useful in order to raise capital?
Okay, so I would say it wasn't my network. My network is obviously very important and it was very good and helpful. But more importantly, it was understanding the investor's language. And this was my biggest lesson in my whole entrepreneurship lesson or journey. Understanding their language in what an investor wants is the important thing, because at the end of the day, this is the part that what us as entrepreneurs sometimes miss. We love our products. We're in love with what we have created, and we think it's worth millions. The investor has really got some extra cash, and what they want to do is make more of it. They want to double it. They want to triple it. So make sure that they see the potential of doubling their money, but that they can see the safety, not the risk. Because if you just talk about millions and spending this and that, they won't see it. They need the basic numbers.
Thank you. How did you build a network of investors that were willing and able to look at investing opportunities?
I built it again through networking myself. So I go to a lot of networking events and I post a lot and I write a lot on internet. So I post on LinkedIn and I write on Medium, and I attend a lot of networking events where I either give speeches or I listen to other people. And afterwards, I use that opportunity to speak to others and speak about what they have been doing. So asking people what they do and showing an interest in them is where you learn what they do, how much they earn, how much success they've had. And that's how you build your network, by showing interest in them.
Do you also find that speaking to them rather than emailing them, for example, the pitch is more effective? So speaking to them more in depth, let's say you meet them at a party or an event, and then you kind of meet them perhaps several times, and that's when they start taking you more seriously.
The human connection is always a lot more powerful. And what a lot of investors will tell you is that they invest in the person or the team. So I would say the meeting is very important. It's very good. But equally, I know a lot of startup founders who've raised just as much money through emails and LinkedIn contacting. So it's not that it's not possible. It is possible just as easily and just as well. But connections are very important.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.